Critics of the use of national IQ tests to promote the idea of racial superiority point out that the quality of the samples being collected is weak, but also that the tests themselves are typically designed for Western audiences and so are biased before they are even administered. Not just Western audiences, but Western styles of learning, Western pedagogy. Even if IQ tests were perfectly culture neutral, which they are not, the way national IQ data is constructed renders them largely unusable. Most so-called national IQ estimates are based on the works of Richard Lynn's racially propagated work, and these in themselves were based on small, non-representative samples often drawn from single regions, schools or cities, sometimes even refugee camps. They rely on outdated cohorts, sometimes decades old. They use tests administered in non-native languages. In other words, they didn't understand what they were reading, and they exclude rural populations entirely. A major peer-reviewed critique led by one Yelt Wickerts demonstrated that selective inclusion and exclusion of African datasets dramatically shifted estimated national means, indicating that the results are highly sensitive to researcher discretion and not stable population traits. In other words, they were picking away and trying to get the results that would give them the output that they were after. Even more troubling for many countries, no data exists at all. In early national IQ compilations, missing countries were assigned national values by averaging neighbouring nations, which in itself is egregiously unscientific, turning purported measurements into model-based estimates later circulated online as hard facts. This is nothing more than inference masquerading as precision. To drive the point home, Adam Rutherford, a geneticist and author of several books including How to Argue with a Racist, said, pointing out that the Somali figure in Lynn's dataset is based on one sample of refugees aged between 8 and 18 who were tested in a Kenyan refugee camp. He adds that the Botswana score is based on a single sample of 104 Swana-speaking school students aged between 7 and 20 who were tested in English. This is beyond bad faith. It's manufactured failure being presented as universally salient representation. It's absolutely ghastly. Recent reporting has shown that AI-powered search engines and chatbots now surface these exact figures, often without caveats, many traceable to heavily criticized or retracted datasets. Once embedded in algorithmic outputs, bad data gains an aura of authority. To read a quote, "There is evidence that Lynn systematically biased the database by preferentially including samples with low IQ results, while excluding those with higher IQ results for African nations, a conclusion backed up by preprint study from 2020.
Yelty Vicker substantiates this further, stating, Lynn's exclusion of a number of high IQ samples that he deemed unrepresentative, and Lynn's ad hoc downward correction of mean IQs from primary and secondary school students by 2 and 6 IQ points respectively.
IQ scores are strongly related with socio-economic conditions, but this relationship is often misrepresented. Mainstream psychological literature shows that childhood cognition is shaped by nutrition and micronutrient access, disease burden and environmental toxins, chronic stress and instability, educational quality and duration. These aren't speculative links. Large-scale reviews demonstrate that environmental quality can directly alter cognitive outcomes, including executive function and working memory. Importantly, heritability estimates for IQ vary by social class. In more deprived environments, genetic potential is less able to express itself. In stable, enriched environments, heritability rises. This means IQ differences between populations often reflect constraints on development, not innate capacity. Once again, the Flynn effect describes this perfectly. So when low national IQ averages are interpreted as evidence of biological inferiority, a profound category error is being committed. Simplistic narratives also collapse under internal contradictions.
There's a reason that European civilization created this enormous gap between them and everybody else. I think it's because Europeans are smarter.
East Asian populations often outperform Western Europeans on standardized tests, despite lower per capita income. This alone disproves any naive wealth equals IQ formula. What these differences more plausibly reflect are educational intensity and structure, exam-oriented pedagogical cultures, selection effects, and test familiarity. Again, training for the test matters. IQ tests measure a narrow band of cognitive performance under artificial conditions. They correlate with some academic and occupational outcomes, but correlation is not completeness. Would you get a similar result if you just did a basic GCSE maths exam and gave it to the general populations? I'm sure you probably would. Once again, this just highlights what style of learning one has been exposed to. We wouldn't then turn around and say GCSE maths exams are an objective measure of one's intelligence. Human intelligence also includes creativity and divergent thinking, emotional and social intelligence, leadership and coalition building, oratory and persuasion, practical problem solving, moral reasoning and judgment, and none of these are meaningfully captured by IQ tests. In fact, I would argue very few are even touched. It is therefore incoherent to treat IQ as the definitive measure of a population's worth, potential, or capacity for civilization, or even intelligence itself. A more accurate framing is this: IQ partially measures how well individuals perform on IQ-like tasks in IQ-like environments, often resembling Western exam conditions. That makes it useful in limited context, but disastrous when elevated into global hierarchy. Once again, reconsider my twins example I gave you earlier. Finally, it is important to note that the misuse of IQ data follows a documented pipeline: weak data sets, academic laundering, social media, AI outputs, public common sense. Multiple journals and watchdog organizations have raised concerns about the continued citation of flawed national IQ databases without warning labels or contextualization. The MAGA and Elon Musk crowd will frame this as some kind of censorship, but it's not. It's just basic methodological hygiene at best. IQ tests can be useful tools when applied carefully, locally, and with full awareness of their limits. Global IQ rankings are none of those things. They collapse culture, history, health, education, inequality, pedagogy into a single misleading number, then present it as a biological destiny. This is pseudoscience. It's outdated race theory and unqualified eugenics reductionism, finding a political afterlife through unregulated online personas with no political answerability. Fuentes. And like I've said so many times before, these people are not only liars, they're dangerous.
Peyton Gendron engaged in the intentional killing of those 10 shoppers at that top supermarket in Buffalo, and that he did so out of racial animus, racial hate. And not only that, but he engaged in extensive planning, and that's what they say separates this case from a lot of others. We know that Gendron plotted for months to research the area code nearest to him that had the highest black population, that he went to that supermarket, surveyed it, went inside, went home after that and drew diagrams of various ways that he could execute the mass amount of people. And then he left that manifesto, and that is another unique circumstance they point to in this case, basically saying that he hoped that others around the country would see his crimes and be motivated to also carry out attacks against the black community.
Whether you choose violence or not, violence is coming to you. You either fight back or you die. You either fight back or you die. And that's the truth.
Gendron has repeatedly said in that manifesto that he was motivated by this thing called the Great Replacement Theory, that racist conspiracy theory that the black population is trying to replace the white population in America.
She pointed out his age, him being 18, and then also fighting back against the failure of social media companies to moderate the hateful rhetoric. Kira.
Final quote. To back up her claim, Sear pointed out that Lynn's research was cited by the white supremacists who committed the mass shooting in Buffalo, New York in 2022.
This is a profoundly politically incorrect concept, of which the axiom is that some people are better than others.